I just f***ed up. It ain't nothing I can do about it. I just f***ed up, bro.
Lasonya Agee, a mother and partner who seemed to have it all together on the outside, but was secretly dealing with a nightmare behind closed doors. She was trapped in a relationship with an abusive man who tormented her physically and mentally. And when she finally found the strength to leave, she paid a horrific price. At just 25 years old, Lasonya was shot 11 times and left for dead. Her grandma and uncle were also attacked. But who did this to her and her family? Why did they want her gone? And what happened to Lasonya after she was shot? Stick around, because that's just the tip of the iceberg. This case sounds like a plot to a movie. Hello strangers and strangelings. Today's story is about Lasonya Agee and her stalker who did the unthinkable. On February 21st, 2021, there was this video that started blowing up on Facebook. It's of a 27-year-old man named Larry Sistrunk, and he's rambling on and on about how he did something really dumb that he shouldn't have done. The stuff he's saying is super disturbing. He keeps talking about how much he loved this woman, but he's also upset about what he did to her, even though he says it wasn't on purpose. He claims he just snapped all of a sudden, which made him do something he now regrets. And at the end, he mentions he's tired of running from the cops, saying he's been on the run for so long and he just can't keep going, so they can just arrest him if they want. But what exactly did this guy do? Why does he sound so guilty? And why does he think the police are after him? Well, to understand what's going on, we need to know about the woman he's talking about. Her name is Lasonya Agee, and she's the mother of Larry's child. The 24-year-old lived in Chicago, worked as a mail carrier for the post office, and had a little online makeup business. She and Larry were in a relationship, and things were great at first. They even had a son together in 2017. But after the baby was born, everything started to fall apart. Like any couple, Lasonya and Larry had their disagreements about how to run their household and how to live their lives. But their fights quickly got out of hand, and Larry started putting his hands on Lasonya. She had a child with this man, so she couldn't bring herself to just leave him, even though the abuse was getting unbearable. Lasonya was scared that one day Larry might actually kill her. She felt trapped and alone, having lost her mom young and not having much family support. She was the perfect target for a manipulative abuser like Larry. But eventually, Lasonya found the courage to stand up for herself. She'd had enough of the torment and wanted to create a better life for her and her son, free from trauma. In her own words, "When I realized I was in an abusive relationship, I tried my hardest to break away from it by being able to provide for my son." So she secretly got her own place and moved out. She even got a restraining order against Larry, but he found out about the apartment and barged in with a gun, threatening Lasonya and her grandma. He was furious that she'd left him and signed the lease without his permission, so he trashed the whole place, breaking the windows and everything. Lasonya's landlord made her move out, afraid the violence would happen again. And just like that, Lasonya was back to square one, stuck with her abuser. This time, the abuse got even worse. Lasonya kept going to the police, but nothing happened. She'd end up with wounds all over her body. She said the abuse was getting worse at this point. "I had a black eye on multiple occasions. I went to the police and filed police reports. None of that mattered to him. He continued to threaten me and my family and friends." So Larry wasn't just tormenting Lasonya now, but also threatening the people she loved. She cared about them so much that she quietly put up with his demands to protect them. The way he tortured her mentally would make her stomach turn. Lasonya saved up to buy a car, but Larry drove it into the garage and wrecked it. He limited her freedom, making it so she couldn't go anywhere without telling him. That stress got so bad that Lasonya couldn't focus at work. Her performance suffered and she started missing shifts because half the time she was too injured to go in. When her boss asked her what was wrong, she opened up about her situation. Her supervisor noticed Larry always checking up on her at work, and she had some of her co-workers walking with her to her car after shifts so that he couldn't get to her. And since Lasonya was such a good employee, they told her they'd arranged to relocate her somewhere safe. She felt hopeful again and started saving money on the down low. She bought another car and kept it hidden, waiting patiently for her fresh start. But she made one mistake. She took pictures of this car and kept them on her phone. And of course, like any psycho boyfriend, Larry went through her phone one day, saw the pics, and he just lost it. He confronted Lasonya, and they had a huge fight. And a few days later, he found her car and rammed it into a pole, smashing the windows too. And when Lasonya tried to stop him, he chased her with a bat. She talked about leaving again, so to get back at her, Larry kidnapped their son. He hid the boy and blackmailed Lasonya, saying she had to get back with him or else. She went to the cops for help, but they said it was a custody issue and she needed to handle it in the court. It was tricky because the kid was with his own dad, not a total stranger. But Lasonya didn't give up. She got legal help and another restraining order to keep Larry away from her son. In her words, "He kept my son from me until I was ready to be with him again. I filed a police report, but they said there was nothing they could do to get my baby back because he's the father. We'd have to go to court, and they told me to file another restraining order." Even with all this insanity going on, Lasonya kept going to work. She started saving up again for her third car, knowing she needed money for a safe future for her and her little boy. But then, one call from her job threw a huge wrench in her plans. She got fired. Her boss said a customer complained that Lasonya stole their mail and dumped documents in their trash with her info on it. Lasonya was shocked. She knew she was innocent, but she had no way to prove it. She said, "One day I went into work and they pulled me into the office. They said they had to let me go because a man came into the post office and told the manager I stole mail. He claimed he found mail from my route in his garbage, mixed with my son's birth certificate. I wonder who that could be." Even though she was upset, Lasonya didn't stop apartment hunting for her and her son. She wanted to get her car fixed too, in case she couldn't buy a new one. By chance, she found a listing for a place that seemed perfect. Her gut told her to be careful, but she was desperate for a safe haven at this point, so she went to check it out. But when she got there and opened the door, Larry was standing there. She quickly realized that Larry had posted a fake ad to lure her in. He wanted to beg her to come back and threaten her if she refused. Lasonya said, "I stumbled across an ad for an apartment in my price range and decided to go see it. Even though I had second thoughts, I didn't think he'd take it this far. But once I arrived and walked to the door, I was surprised by my son's father, who had set up a fake ad. And because I didn't want to take him back to where I was hiding to protect my loved ones, I just went back." Lasonya didn't want to go back to that abusive hell, but she missed her son, so she agreed. Once she was there, she kept an eye out for any chance to escape with her son. And one day, she did it. She got out of there with her kid. But even then, she couldn't shake Larry. He kept popping up, demanding she come back to him. On Valentine's Day, 2021, Lasonya was shocked to find Larry stalking her again. She got in her car to go somewhere. And guess what she found in her trunk? Larry. She said, "This past Valentine's Day, as I was driving down the street, I heard something in my back seat. When I turned around, I saw it was my son's father, who hid in my trunk until I got in the car." Lasonya was so scared for her loved ones that she started staying in random hotels, just so Larry couldn't find them. She knew he was getting more violent and wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone who got between them. At this point, Lasonya had gone back to Larry so many times that people were over helping her, thinking she'd just end up with him again no matter what. But on February 21st, 2021, something happened that changed everything. Security cameras caught the horrifying moment it all went down. That day, Lasonya had just gotten home from work and was sitting in her car on the 7800 block of South Muskegon. Suddenly, another car pulled up next to hers. It was Larry. He started talking to her through the window, trying to convince her to come back to him. Lasonya's uncle was standing behind the cars. She told Larry to go away and refused to go with him. Lasonya said, "We were talking for a minute. He was trying to make me get in the car with him, and I'm like, no." He then said, okay. She got out of the car, and that's when Larry hopped out of his, pointed a gun at her uncle, and fired upon him. Poor man dropped to the ground. Larry pulled up and then pulled back and started firing at Lasonya as she ran for the door. She fell and was shot. Her grandma was there too, and she got hit. Then Larry turned his rage on Lasonya's car, where their son was sitting inside. Lasonya said, "He shot the car up while my son was inside and emptied the entire clip." People nearby heard the chaos, gathered around and started calling for help, desperate to save the 3 victims' lives. And after unleashing hell like a coward, Larry ran off. But then he went on Facebook Live, ranting about his relationship in the shooting. He said there was no going back from what he did. He claimed he didn't know what made him snap, and that he was tired of running, and the cops could have him. Larry kept going on and on about things ending and how he talked to a friend about this very thing a few days ago. It's not totally clear what he meant, but it seems like he was hinting at finally losing it after trying to control everything for so long and failing because he's a loser. He said he was making this video so people would know his heart before the police caught him and trashed his name. Well, you trashed your own name, you old sensitive ass fragile psycho. But he sounded sure that it was over for him, like he knew he'd crossed the line and there was no coming back.
Let's do everything away. Ain't no coming back from this, bro. Ain't no coming back from this, bro. Ain't no point in me. Ain't no point in me going again. No.
He kept repeating that he loved the people in his life and saying he mistakenly snapped and attacked Lasonya and her family, and then the video ended. But back at the crime scene, Lasonya and her family members were rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center in critical condition. But thank God, all three of them survived. The police launched an investigation, and neighbors came forward with info since many of them saw Larry attack Lasonya, her grandma, and her uncle. So it wasn't hard for the cops to figure out their prime suspect. When reporters talked to Lasonya, she said Larry just kept shooting and shooting. She got hit with 11 shots. One shot could have hit her head and ended her life right there. She says she made it because most of the bullets hit her lower body, missing her vital organs, but her liver was actually hit. Lasonya thinks Larry shot her family so there wouldn't be any witnesses to his crime, but since Larry's such a failure, he failed at that also. It's a miracle. Her grandma and uncle lived, even with 8 bullet wounds each, but that trauma will haunt them forever. Lasonya's little boy saw the whole thing too. He got out of the car and tried to comfort his mom and help her. Can you imagine? This child will grow up knowing his own dad tried to off his mom. At the time Lasonya gave this interview, Larry was still on the run. She was terrified he'd come back to finish the job on her or her family. She wanted other women to learn from her nightmare. She said, no matter how deep the bond is, putting up with abuse never ends well.
It's not worth it. You see me, I got shot 11 times by someone I loved and someone I shared a child with.
And the cops eventually tracked down Larry. They found him hiding out in Louisiana and arrested him on the spot. The police said Larry Sistrunk of the Austin neighborhood was arrested Wednesday evening at O'Hare International Airport by the Great Lakes Fugitive Task Force. He was located in an apartment on Mary Jane Street in Mansura, Louisiana. Shortly after, he voluntarily surrendered and was taken into custody without incident. The cops dragged him back to Chicago and slapped him with 3 counts of attempted murder and 3 counts of aggravated battery. So what do you all think about this? Do you believe Lasonya and her family were incredibly lucky? Do you think she did everything she could to get help from law enforcement? Could this attack have been prevented if the authorities took her complaints more seriously from the jump? Should you choose the bear? No, let me shut up. But anyway, let me know in the comments your thoughts and what you guys think about this case. This is a wild one. All right, guys, be good, be safe.